You ever help someone out and suddenly find yourself knee-deep in drama you didn't ask for? Yeah, that's where I'm at. What started as a simple favor for my best friend turned into a full-blown family meltdown. Now my wife's furious, her sister's heartbroken, and everyone's demanding answers. But here's the thing. What would you do if telling the truth meant betraying a friend? It all started about 5 years ago when I packed up everything I owned and moved 15 hours away from my hometown for a job opportunity I couldn't pass up. Fresh start, new city, better pay. I thought I was building the life I'd always wanted. I didn't expect to meet someone like Emily so soon. She was sharp, kind, funny in that sarcastic way that catches you off guard. We hit it off fast. A year later, we were married. Now, I'd kept in touch with a few people from back home, but there was one person who always stayed closest, my best friend since high school, Marcus. He was more like a brother than a friend. We've been through it all. Breakups, family messes, dead-end jobs, and those late-night, what the hell are we doing with our lives kind of talks. So naturally, when Marcus said he needed a change of scenery a couple years back, I told him to come stay with us for a while. He stayed in our guest room, helped around the house, got to know the city a bit, and that's when everything shifted. Marcus met Emily's younger sister, Vanessa. They clicked almost immediately. It wasn't just casual dating either, it got serious fast. Vanessa had a daughter from a previous relationship, but Marcus didn't seem to mind. He took it all in stride. Honestly, it was kind of heartwarming to see. I remember thinking, damn, maybe this could really work out for them. Within a year, Marcus and Vanessa decided to move in together. She'd been living with her parents since her last breakup, trying to juggle motherhood and part-time work. So the move made sense. Financially and emotionally, it looked like a step forward for both of them. They found a decent apartment nearby, split the bills, and settled into what seemed like a real partnership. But how often do things look perfect from the outside when they're unraveling behind closed doors? Looking back, I wonder, what do we really know about the relationships around us? How often do we mistake calm for peace and smiles for happiness? From the way Vanessa would talk, everything was going fine. But Marcus had started calling me late at night. Quiet, drawn-out conversations filled with long silences. He never said anything specific at first, but I could tell something wasn't right. And then 2 months ago, the truth came crashing down. Marcus found out Vanessa had been cheating on him. Not hearsay, not rumors, solid proof, texts, photos, all of it. He was crushed. I've never heard him sound so hollow before. He didn't yell, didn't rage. He just sat in my living room, hands wrapped around a mug of cold coffee, staring at nothing like the whole world had betrayed him. He told me he couldn't stay in that apartment another day. But he also couldn't bring himself to confront Vanessa, not with her daughter in the picture. I don't want to blow up her world, he said, but I can't stay in mine either. That hit me hard, so I told him I'd help. Quietly, carefully, on his terms. And that's when everything really started to spiral. Have you ever felt torn between the people you love and the people you owe? Who gets your loyalty when everything's on the line? We waited for the right moment, and it came quicker than expected. Emily, Vanessa, their mom, and Vanessa's daughter were heading out of town for a long weekend to visit Emily's grandmother. 4 days. That was our window. Just enough time for Marcus to quietly disappear without drama or confrontation. I reached out to a buddy from work, someone outside of our usual circle, who owned a rental house on the edge of town. Nothing fancy, but clean, quiet, and more importantly, available. Marcus agreed to it. He just wanted space. I remember he said, "I don't care if it's a couch or a floor. I just need to be somewhere that isn't there." The night before they left for the trip, Marcus and I packed up nearly everything he owned. Furniture, clothes, tools. Turns out, he'd paid for almost all of it. He left Vanessa the shared stuff, like the couch and TV. He even labeled boxes so she wouldn't think he just took things at random. That's the kind of guy he is. Heartbroken, but still thinking about being fair. By sunrise the next morning, he was gone. Moved in. Out of sight. Before leaving, Marcus wrote an email to Vanessa explaining everything. It wasn't mean or bitter, just honest. He laid it all out. The betrayal, the pain, and why he couldn't face her in person. He attached a scanned check to cover his share of rent and utilities through the end of their lease. And he told the landlord he wouldn't be renewing. Clean break, no fights, no burned bridges. At least that's what we hoped. A few hours later, while still on their trip, Vanessa saw the email. She tried calling Marcus immediately. 10 missed calls in the first hour, then texts, then voice notes. Her messages went from confused to angry to pleading and back to angry again. And when she didn't get a response, she turned to Emily. That's when my phone rang. Emily asked if I knew what was going on. I told her the truth, or at least part of it, that Marcus had moved out, that he was safe, and that he didn't want to be contacted. She kept pressing. Why? Where? Is he okay? I stuck to my line. He's safe, that's all I can say. I could hear the frustration growing in her voice. This affects my family, she said. You need to tell me where he is. But I didn't, and I wouldn't. What would you do if your spouse demanded answers you promised to keep private? How do you choose between protecting a friend and keeping peace at home? When they got back from the trip, things exploded. Vanessa walked into an apartment that felt half empty. She cried, she screamed, she stormed around the place like she'd been robbed. And to her credit, I get it, it probably did feel like a sucker punch. But she knew what she did. Deep down, she had to know this was coming. Emily confronted me again that night, more serious this time. Why are you protecting him? She asked. He hurt my sister. I wanted to scream. Your sister hurt him first. But I didn't say that. I just told her the same thing. He's okay. He doesn't want contact. That's all I can tell you. She didn't take that well. Since then, the house has been full of tension. She brings it up almost daily, accuses me of betrayal, says I'm choosing Marcus over her family. And maybe I am. But loyalty's a complicated thing, isn't it? I didn't expect things to stay quiet forever, but I didn't expect them to get this ugly either. The days after Marcus left were tense, sure, but by the second week, Emily's frustration had hardened into something sharper. It wasn't just concern anymore, it was suspicion. I'd come home from work to find her sitting on the couch, arms crossed, barely looking at me. She'd ask the same questions over and over. Where is he? Why won't you just tell me? What are you hiding? And every time I gave her the same answer. It's not my story to tell. That answer stopped working real fast. At first, she tried the guilt angle. We're married. We're supposed to be a team. How can you keep something like this from me? I get it. I really do. From her point of view, I was holding out on her, lying by omission, protecting someone who just hurt her sister. But from my point of view, I was keeping my word to someone who needed me, someone who had no one else in the city, someone I've known longer than I've known her. Still, the emotional whiplash wore me down. One night she even cried, real shoulder-shaking tears, and said, I just don't understand why you're choosing him over me. That one hit me in the chest. I sat next to her, tried to explain it wasn't about choosing sides. It was about doing the right thing for everyone. But how do you explain something like that to someone who feels betrayed by your silence? When do you stop being a good husband if being a good friend comes first? Can both roles survive at the same time, or does one always have to lose? Then came the manipulation. I woke up one morning and saw a call made from my phone at 2 a.m. to Marcus's number. I hadn't made it. Turns out, while I was asleep, Emily used my fingerprint to unlock the phone and tried to pretend to be me in a text. She didn't get much from him. He figured it out quickly, but that was the last straw for me. I changed my passcode the same day. When I confronted her about it, she didn't even deny it. You won't tell me anything, she snapped. I had no choice. That stung, because it wasn't just about Marcus anymore. It was about trust. And that felt like a door we couldn't easily close again. The tension spread like smoke through every part of our home. Dinner became silent. Morning started with cold goodbyes. She'd avoid eye contact. Or worse, she'd look at me like I was someone she didn't recognize. And all I kept thinking was, how did we get here? Then a few nights ago, she said something that made my stomach drop. I don't know if I can stay married to someone who lies to me like this. She didn't shout it. She didn't even say it with anger. It was quiet, almost casual, but it landed like a gut punch. I didn't respond right away. What was I supposed to say? Sorry for keeping a man safe from your cheating sister? Instead, I just asked, would it really be better if I had told you where he was? What would you have done with that information? She didn't answer, just turned away and walked into the bedroom, closing the door behind her. That silence is still echoing. I didn't sleep much of that night. The sound of the bedroom door clicking shut played on a loop in my head. That soft, deliberate sound felt louder than any shouting match we'd ever had. It said everything she didn't. It said we weren't okay. I sat in the living room for hours, staring at my dark phone screen, debating whether to call Marcus. Not to tattle or vent, but because I wanted to hear someone say I wasn't losing my mind, that I wasn't being unreasonable. But I didn't make the call. He'd already been pulled into enough chaos. I wasn't going to drag him further into the mess. Still, it left me wondering, when you're trying to protect one person, how many others do you end up hurting along the way? The next morning, things didn't get better. Emily walked past me like I wasn't there. No good morning, no acknowledgement, just silence. The kind of silence that doesn't come from peace, but from restraint. Like if she opened her mouth, all hell would break loose. She finally broke it that evening. "I want you to tell me everything," she said flatly. "Right now, no more secrets. I deserve the truth." I closed my laptop slowly, trying to gather my thoughts. I could feel my heartbeat in my ears. I looked at her and said, "You already know the truth. You just don't like that I'm keeping the wear to myself." That was like lighting a match. "You're damn right I don't like it," she snapped. "My sister is shattered. She comes home to an empty apartment, her daughter's confused, and all you can say is, 'He's safe.' How do you think that makes me feel?" She had every right to be angry. I didn't deny that. I just didn't believe that knowing Marcus's exact location would fix anything. It wouldn't unbreak Vanessa's heart or undo what she'd done. All it would do is open up a new front for confrontation. And Marcus had made it clear he wasn't ready for that. So I asked her calmly, "What would you do if I told you where he was? Go there, force a conversation, bring Vanessa. Is that really what he needs right now?" She didn't answer right away. Her eyes welled up, but not with rage, more like exhaustion. "I don't know," she whispered, "but I feel completely shut out. You're supposed to be my partner. I feel like you're a wall I can't get through." And I heard her, I did. But the truth is, I felt like a wall too. Stuck between protecting someone I love and staying loyal to someone else I love just as deeply. What do you do when your values clash right in the middle of your marriage? Is it disloyal to your spouse to keep a promise to someone else? Or is that what real friendship looks like? Being someone your friend can count on, no matter what it costs. Later that night, she asked if Marcus ever planned to return. I told her I didn't know. That was honest. He hadn't said, yet. He was still processing. Still figuring out what healing even looked like. That was the first time she didn't argue with me. She just nodded and walked away quietly. The silence has changed since then. It's less fiery, more fragile, like we're both waiting for something to give. I don't know if she's planning something. I don't know if we're headed for reconciliation or a cliff. But I do know this. I don't regret helping Marcus. The only thing I'm not sure about anymore is whether I've lost my wife because of it. It's been a month now. Marcus still hasn't come back. As far as I know, he's working, keeping his head down, trying to rebuild his life piece by piece. He sends me the occasional text, updates about the Koi, a new book he's reading, the way the quiet is finally starting to feel like peace instead of punishment. I don't ask questions he's not ready to answer. That's the deal. And I hold to it. Back at home, things have shifted again. Emily and I talk more now, but not like we used to. There's a weight between us, something unspoken and unresolved. We're both trying, I think. She still makes coffee in the morning. I still ask how her day went. But every conversation feels like walking around a bruise, careful not to press too hard. She hasn't asked about Marcus in a while. Sometimes I catch her looking at me like she wants to, like the question is right there on the tip of her tongue, but she bites it back. And maybe that's growth, or maybe it's distance. I can't tell anymore. What I do know is this. I didn't come into this trying to choose sides. I never imagined I'd be the middleman in a mess like this. But when Marcus came to me, broken, humiliated, scared, I saw someone drowning. And when a friend's drowning, you don't ask for permission to throw the rope. You just do it. Still, that decision cost me something. The trust between Emily and me has cracks now. Not impossible ones, but they're there and we both feel them. There are moments when things feel normal again, like watching a movie together or cooking dinner side by side. But then there's a look, a pause, a silence too long to be casual, and we're reminded nothing's quite the same. How do you repair something that broke without shattering? Who takes the first step toward healing when both people feel betrayed? I've thought about sitting her down and telling her everything, how Marcus found out, how devastated he was, how much he agonized over leaving Vanessa and her daughter behind. Maybe if she knew the full scope of it, she'd see why I did what I did. But some part of me wonders if that's just me trying to justify myself. Would it change anything? Or would it just pour salt on a wound that's trying to close? Some nights I lie awake and think about how different things might have been if Vanessa had just told the truth. If Marcus hadn't found out the way he did. If Emily had trusted me enough to believe I wasn't trying to hurt her. I was trying to protect someone who didn't have the strength to protect himself. But that's not the path we took. And maybe that's the hardest part. Knowing you did the right thing, but still not feeling like a hero in your own story. Because being right doesn't always feel good. Sometimes it feels like sitting alone in the dark, wondering if doing the right thing is worth the damage it leaves behind. So now I wait. I wait to see if time softens the edges of this whole thing. I wait to see if Emily and I can find our way back to the trust we used to share. I wait to see if Marcus ever wants us to come back into their orbit, or if that chapter's closed for good. And maybe I wait for forgiveness too. From her, from myself, from a world where doing the right thing still feels like the loneliest decision I've ever made. What would you have done if you were in my shoes? Because honestly, I'm still not sure if I made the right call, but I'd probably make it again. I want to pause and ask you, what would you have done? If your best friend needed you, but your marriage was hanging in the balance, which way would your heart lean? I know this wasn't an easy story to hear, and trust me, it hasn't been easy to live. If you've ever had to make a choice that pulled you in two directions, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if you believe I did what I had to, please like this video and subscribe. It lets me know I'm not alone, that maybe someone out there understands.